quite a juicy one, on the difference between Vishishtadvaita and Advaita. I think one of your USPs or one of the strengths that I see as an observer is that you can cater to an audience of both sections, and you maintain a pretty delicate balance, especially on some areas related to, say, for example, Lord Shiva and representation in both points of view. So, for example, for someone like me who comes from a Smartha tradition and from the Kanchi Mutt as our gurus, some of your lectures were illuminating as well as something which I was comfortable listening to. So how do you, first of all, what is your view on the difference between the two philosophies? And second, how do you maintain a balance during Upanyasam so that you cater to a wider audience within the Hindu fold in general?
Sriram, Sanatana Dharma at large, which in the recent years we are forced to call it a religion. Technically, this is not a religion. So, if you treat Sanatana Dharma as a religion today, you have two major elements to it. One is the philosophy and the second is the theology. People often misconstrue one for the other. Philosophy is Advaita. Philosophy is Visishtadvaita. Philosophy is Dvaita. Philosophy is Achintya Bheda Bheda. These are all philosophies. Vaishnavam, Shaivam. In English it becomes Vaishnavism, Shaivism, Shaktism. These are all theologies. So, a simple difference between the two, if you take up a philosophy, it goes within, it goes beyond the obvious. It says the body is what you see, the body is what I see in you. I see a body of Sriram, I see a body of Dushyant. So this is obvious. So if I say I spotted two eyes of Sriram, nobody is going to give me a Nobel, because that's obvious. I can perceive your eyes. But if I say that I can perceive something inside Sriram which helps the body of Sriram function, that's where I get one step deeper. I go beyond the obvious and I deal with a sentient matter called Atma. So the differences that you see between the both of us has mostly to do with appearances. You are a few inches taller than me, a few pounds lesser than me, maybe fairer to me. Your eye glances power may be slightly higher. I may have slightly brown eyes where you may have black eyes. So these are all differences that we see in the body. Whereas philosophy gets one step deeper and says the differences that you see are external. There's one similarity that you see in both of you, which is the Jivatma. So the Jivatma inside the me, the Jivatma inside the you is the same. Same in terms of attributes. But one thing that differs in Sanatana Dharma, which the believers say, is the karma account. So your Jivatma, though it resembles mine, the karma account which is attached to my Jivatma and that which is attached to you will be different. That difference in the karma is what has caused us these two bodies, whereas the Jivatmas are the same. So philosophy, which is Siddhantam in Sanatana Dharma, aims to help elevate the person overall to acquire nice things while the Jivatma is present in the body, help the person, him or her, progress and elevate spiritually so that the Jivatma reaches a better sphere. So the final destination is what we call as Purushartha, so which is moksha. So Vedas become the base stone for us, and the interpretation to certain texts of Vedas, the Vedanta, which is the Upanishad, the Brahma Sutras or the Vedanta Sutras that have come out of Upanishads, then subsequently the essence of Vedanta Sutras and Vedanta, which is Bhagavad Gita, the interpretation to these texts is what has given rise to two or three or more kinds of large philosophies. You've got Advaita, you've got Visishtadvaita, you've got Advaita. But all of these acharyas have agreed upon one fact, that it is only knowledge which can help us reach a better sphere. Jnanan mokshaha. So through jnana you get moksham, which is salvation or call it moksham itself. I can't find a better word in English. But what jnanam is what that makes a difference. If Adi Shankara has stated that read out on certain lines, read everything of it, but there are certain lines of great philosophical significance, like aham brahmasmi, tattvamasi, so sarvam khalvaidam brahma tajjalan. These are all mahavakyas in Advaita Siddhantam. Read everything. These 4 lines, when read, vakyartham, when you read the vakyam, the line, the knowledge that you gain out of it will give you moksham. This is one way that he has found a way. Visishta Advaita is another way where Ramanuja states bhakti rupapanna jnanam. It is just not the jnanam. You read the line, you contemplate upon it. After contemplating, you develop the sense of love towards that supreme matter. Continue offering your devotion to that Lord, and the knowledge which is finally born out of the devotion is what that gives you moksham. This is called bhakti rupapanna jnanam. That's another one. Then there comes another third aspect which is called aparoksha jnanam in Madhva Sampradaya. So you have these differences, but ultimately they all base it on Veda, Vedanta, Upanishads and Brahma Sutra and Bhagavad Gita. So the foundation is quite the same. The way they construct about it is different. I am born into a family which technically says they follow Visishta Advaita. There is a difference between following Visishta Advaita and saying that I belong to a clan that belongs to Visishta Advaita. I don't know how many of them in this world who say I am born into a Smarta family are actually Advaitis by nature. So how many of them born into a typical community called the Sri Vaishnava community are Visishta Advaitis? So we may be convinced of the fact that Visishta Advaita seems more convincing to me. But how much I put that to practice, how much I have realized out of it is another question. So let's keep the question at this basic trend that I am born into a family of Visishta Advaita. That doesn't mean that I will not be a follower of Advaita. See, if Visishta Advaita is not convincing to me, I read Advaita. Vice versa, you are born into a family that falls into Advaita philosophy. If that doesn't interest you and Visishta Advaita interests you, you can come. See, this exchange program that runs between universities is what we have had in philosophies as well. We had a Mandana Mishra who was a Purva Mimamsa who became an Advaiti. You had an Advaiti called Nanjiyar before who later became a Visishta Advaiti. There are many instances of these exchange programs. So Advaita, Visishta Advaita is not a brand stuck on my Jivatma. If I'm convinced of that philosophy, I follow that. Same is the case with theology. Theology has more to do externally, wherein I start personifying that universal person spoken in the philosophy as God, and that God with certain identifications that Vedam has to say. For example, if it is Lord Shiva, he stands with the Trishulam, a Dhamaru, he has got Ankusham and so on. So these are all aspects that I see him. He is the one who bestows knowledge, so he sits as Dakshinamurti. So if I see Vishnu, Shastram tells Apranaghathu Sarvayeva Suvarnaha Hiranyasmashruhu Hiranyakeshaha Tasya Yatha Kapyasam Pundarikam Eva Makshini. He is the one who has got hair that resembles gold, moustache that resembles gold. He has got eyes like that of the lotus, which is what Andal and Prabandham says Pangayar Kannanai, which is Pankaja Kannanai, Pankaja Lochana. So I start personifying Vishnu. So over a period of time, there are a set of rituals, practices that start coming to Vishnu. So does with Lord Shiva. Now they become parts in their own. So there is a Vaishnavism, there is a Shaivism. Now Vaishnavism can be married to Advaita as well. For example, there could be a person who believes in this two-stage concept of Saguna Brahmam and Nirguna Brahmam of Adi Shankara, still believes in the concept of Maya covering the Paramatma and calling that as Jivatma, talking about the state of Anubhuti, talking about the state where the right kind of knowledge will help the Maya go away and will give the realization that the Paramatma and Jivatma are one and the same, and yet be a Vishnu devotee.
Right.
So we have had a Madhusudana Saraswati who gave one of the tallest works called Advaita Siddhi, who tells Krishnat Param Tattvam Aham Na Jane, I see nobody greater than Krishna. So he talks of Advaita but still has a personal attachment to Krishna. So is the case with Sadashiva Brahmendra. He was a great Advaiti, he had great attachment to Krishna. Now if we take for instance there is a smaller known portion. I spoke about Advaita, an Advaitin being a Vaishnavite too. There could be a Visishtadvaitin who could be a Shaivite too. It's a very small section, very less known. We have had many bhashyas where, similar to the Achit Chittan Ishvara of Ramanuja, in the Ishvara Tattva, instead of Narayana, that philosopher would have placed a Shiva there. So we've had people who were Visishtadvaitis, that's a small section, proportion is very low, who were Shaivites too. So an Advaitin can be a Shaivite, a Vaishnavite. A Visishtadvaitin could be a Shaivite or a Vaishnavite. But largely Visishtadvaitins are Vaishnavites. And when it comes to Advaita, I wouldn't say largely they are Shaivites. They don't perceive much difference in worshipping the both of them. So they are partly Vaishnavite and partly Shaivite. There used to be a saying, Antarshaktaha Bahirshaivaha Vyavaharyeshu cha Vaishnavaha. Antarshaktaha, internally they may have a great attachment to goddess Lalita. Bahir Shaivaha, they may apply vibhuti on their faces, on their lalatam, foreheads. They may end up reciting Vishnu Sahasranamam. Antarshaktaha, Bahir Shaivaha, Vyavaharyeshu cha Vaishnavaha. So, of course, a large section of Smartas don't have a problem visiting a Shiva temple and a Vishnu temple. And to some extent, a large section of the Vaishnavites may not visit a Shiva temple. But the philosophy and the theology binding Visishtadvaita or Vaishnavism doesn't state that just because you don't visit a Shiva temple, because the belief is if the entire world, which is a combination of the sentient and the insentient matter, which is the Achit and Chit, is the body to the Lord. Even when we say Sura Nara Khaga Go Bhogi Gandharva Daityehi Chitram Ramyam Yatetam Tribhuvana Vapusham. So the entire world is the body to the Lord. So in Visishtadvaita and especially in Vaishnavism, there is a belief that has been long said in scriptures that the entire world is the body to the Lord. So when I worship that Lord, I worship the entire creation. So when I worship Narayana, for instance, I see the Navagrahas, I see Shiva, I see all the deities in him. But that doesn't amount to disrespecting any of the deities in my lectures. So if I disrespect, that very well points out to the fact that I haven't understood the philosophy well. So as a speaker, I must ensure the content gets imparted rather than hurting the sentiments of, because I don't filter my audience. I don't say that people from this community should come and listen. There are Brahmins, there are non-Brahmins, there are Tamil speaking people, Kannada speaking people, there are Shaivites, there are Shaktins, there are Vaishnavites who listen. I don't have to impress upon every one of them. People are ready to accept my content as long as I don't hurt them. So hurting is not my forte. So I have grown up in an environment where even on a Christmas, my grandmother wouldn't mind baking an eggless cake at home. And my grandfather would ask, on the December 25th, what are you baking the cake for? So my grandmother didn't have any problems in saying that I may not go to a church, I may not read the Bible, but what stops me from respecting another person? So there's a person called Jesus. He has spoken some nice things. He was born on this day. Anyways, the cake is not going to be consumed by him. It's we who are going to consume the cake. Why don't we bake a cake? So literally being born into a family that has had regards for all forms of religion and worship, I just can't imagine myself disrespecting or hurting anyone. But I have a firm belief in Visishtadvaita. I have a firm belief in the theology of Vaishnavism. I follow it. But I find no problems in moving or speaking to an audience who follow a different philosophy and theology as long as they don't have a problem listening to me.
That's great. Just